Let's read our key about Witty reading. This is called Peaceful Protest, and they are saying no. Okay, there is some people here at the top saying no, and they look like they disagree with something. Let's read about peaceful protest. Imagine that a group of people is mistreating other persons. You feel angry because everybody should be treated with respect. You call the police, but they do not stop such behavior. What would you do in a situation like this? Have you ever thought of this situation? Have you ever been in a situation where you see that other person is mistreating, someone, and you feel bad about it? And what do you guys think you could do? Okay, I'll leave that question for you. There are many ways to show your disagreement. However, addressing violence with violence is not the solution. What can we do to face unjust situations? So, as we mentioned before in the previous tutorial, violence against violence or addressing violence is not a solution. You do not solve nothing. All right, let's continue. Writing. How can we represent a protest? We can protest by writing. Nowadays, we have many media sources that we can use. Okay, for example, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, WhatsApp, to express what we feel in case of a wrong situation, of a negative situation. We can express there. Let's see what it says. Some people publish articles on the internet or newspaper. Others contact their media to face the problem. Hunger strikes. Okay, what is a hunger strike? No eating is a way of peaceful protest. That is called a hunger strike. So on these type of strikes, people do not eat. Okay, people do not eat, and they put a tape on their mouth, and this is a way that they protest. Once back in the time, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I watched in the news that some woman here in Mexico did a food protest because they want equality. There were some nurses, I believe. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yes, this type of protest exists, and most of the times they're done by women. Protest song. Okay, this is a way to solve the problem in a different way. Musicians write protest songs against social problems. Everybody can sing them. They help raise awareness about an issue. Okay, so for example, in the United States, there are many migration issues with immigrants, and I have heard many songs about migrants in the United States, and that's something at the same time positive because um, they try to make this problem easier to go. All right, silent protest, okay? And as we mentioned before in the previous video, a silent protest is a non-violent demonstration, okay? They are showing their disapproval, but they do not talk. All they do is just show that they're in silence and that they disagree with that specific something. All right, now let's continue here at the bottom. Peaceful civil disobedience is the refusal to obey unjust laws. In 1849, American writer Henry David Thoreau refused to pay a tax that he considered unjust. Taxes are paid in the United States. It's like here in Mexico, we pay taxes too for the things that we use. Okay, for the things that we buy, we pay an amount, and this goes straight to the government. Okay, so he was put in jail. He said, "No, I don't want to pay it," and he went straight to jail. There, he wrote his essay about civil disobedience, resistance to civil government. Unjust laws exist. Shall we be content to obey them, or shall we endure or amend them? H.D. Thoreau, Resistance to Civil Government. So this is what Henry David Thoreau wrote, and maybe he was right. Okay, unjust laws exist, and we are in our right to protest, okay, against them. Many people resist with peaceful civil disobedience. As a result, some governments revoked unjust laws. Do you know who broke the law to create better life conditions? Alright, let's see who we have here. The first one here is this lady. She was very famous in the United States. Her name is Rosa Parks, and she refused to give up her seat to a white passenger. Back in the days, there was many segregation, and white people buses were not allowed, didn't allow black people to get in the buses, okay, especially to sit in the buses. So this lady, Rosa Parks, she said no. I'm going to sit in the bus, okay, and I'm going to shout for my equality, okay. So it was the beginning of a white civil disobedience movement where black people disagree with the mistreatment that they had back in the times, and Rosa Parks started this movement. The second one is on September 13th here in Mexico, and it says 1968, students from National Autonomous University of Mexico demonstrated in silence. This is a silence protest, okay? They demonstrated silence to stop repression against the student movement, okay? And here you have the ladies participating in the movement. This other one was in the Soviet Union, okay? And this was between 1987 and 1991. The signing revolution led Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to the independence from the Soviet Union. They wanted independence. So what they did, they protest because they thought that the way they were living, okay, under the Soviet Union was not right. And finally, we have Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, he inspired Hindus to resist the British government with peaceful civil disobedience. Remember, like the silent protest, okay, marching, okay. And one of the most interesting one is that he asked the people to stop buying British products and refuse to attend to British schools. So he said this is a way to protest. Don't buy their food, don't buy the products that they produce, and don't go to their schools, okay? Because they were getting segregated. So Mahatma Gandhi, he inspired many people to protest against the unjust. So this is the famous people that did something for the change, okay, to better life conditions all around the world. African American activist Martin Luther King Jr. said that violence does not overcome violence. Many people supported his idea, and African Americans got equal civil rights. These people show that peace can beat injustice. So, yes, if you are a peaceful person, you can beat injustice by doing the correct way in not in without violence. All right, so let's take a look at these vocabulary words. You're going to repeat them 3 times each.
African American, African American, African American. Demonstration, demonstration, demonstration. demonstration, disagreement, 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 refuse, 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 violence, violence, violence,
All right, so what do you guys think about these vocabulary words and about this great witty reading key? Okay, we can do silent protest, okay, and peaceful protest, remember, to make a change. All right, guys, now let's continue with the next activity. Okay, now I'm going to invite you guys to watch this video about Martin Luther King, one of the most famous activists in the United States that made a very big change, okay, in the history of the USA, okay? He fought for equality. No people were mistreated after he passed the laws, okay? After he fought, okay? And he was a very peaceful activist, and unfortunately he was killed, but he was a complete activist. He has lots of admiration all around America, especially in the United States.
Let's learn about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American preacher, humanitarian, and activist who is best known for his role in the African American civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s. Dr. King, who was inspired by his faith and the peaceful teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, is considered one of history's greatest champions of nonviolence. He used the power of his words, as well as peaceful demonstrations such as protest, sit-ins, and boycotts, in an effort to achieve equality for all people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a true American hero. Let's learn more about his life and how he inspired a nation and the world to become more tolerant and accepting of all citizens, regardless of race, class, or gender. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on Tuesday, January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia at 12 p.m. His name at birth was Michael King. His father, also named Michael, changed both their names to Martin Luther in honor of the world-renowned German reformer of the same name. Martin Jr. was a middle child. He had an older sister named Willie Christine King and a younger brother named Alfred Daniel Williams King. Martin Jr. attended Booker T. Washington High School and was so smart he skipped both the 9th and 12th grades. He enrolled in Morehouse College at age 15 without formally graduating from high school. During his final semester at Morehouse College, Martin was ordained as a minister. He also took his first steps towards being an activist by writing a letter to the editor of the Atlanta Constitution. In the letter, he declared that African Americans were entitled to the basic rights and opportunities of American citizens. After graduating from Morehouse, Martin attended Crozier Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania from 1948 until 1951. Martin then began his doctoral studies at Boston University. During this time, he began to draw from his education, his faith, and his natural verbal ability to form the foundation for what would become his critical role in the civil rights movement. While in Boston, Martin met and dated Coretta Scott, who was a student at the New England Conservatory of Music. On June 18, 1953, they were married in Alabama, where Coretta's family lived. Martin and Coretta became the parents of 4 children: Yolanda King, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott King, and Bernice King. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give her seat to a white person on a crowded bus in Montgomery, Alabama, a city known for its segregated public spaces. That night, Martin met with other activists to plan a citywide protest that would become known as the Montgomery Bus Boycott. The boycott lasted over 380 days. During this time, Martin was arrested and harassed by people who did not want the changes he was fighting to bring about. The boycott, however, was a success. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation in transportation was unconstitutional. Martin's role in the boycott transformed him into a national figure and the best-known spokesman of the civil rights movement. In the wake of the boycott victory, civil rights leaders recognized the need for a national organization to better coordinate their efforts. In January of 1957, Martin and roughly 60 other ministers and activists founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or the SCLC. With Martin as president, the SCLC helped conduct nonviolent protests and demonstrations across the South to promote civil rights reform. A primary focus for the organization was registering African Americans to vote. The SCLC sponsored mass meetings in key Southern cities for that purpose. In 1963, Martin led a coalition of several civil rights groups in a nonviolent campaign aimed at Birmingham, Alabama, which was at that time described as the most segregated city in America. The nation was shocked to see images of young African Americans attacked by police dogs and high-pressure fire hoses displayed on television, newspapers, and magazines. It was during this campaign that Martin wrote his now famous Letter from a Birmingham Jail, after being arrested again for his participation in the demonstrations. Later in 1963, Martin was one of the driving forces behind the March for Jobs and Freedom, more commonly known as the March on Washington. On August 28, 1963, over 250,000 people of all ethnicities gathered at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. to demand justice and equality for all people. It was here that Martin made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Delivered from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, this speech inspired the nation and is now considered one of the greatest in American history. Martin was later named Time magazine's Man of the Year. This further cemented his status as the nation's foremost social change leader. In 1964, at 35 years old, Martin became the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. When he found out that he had been selected, he promised to donate the prize money, over $54,000, to help continue the important work of the civil rights movement. He delivered another powerful speech when he accepted his award that was both moving and motivational. Also in 1964, partly due to the March on Washington and Martin's speech, Congress passed the landmark Civil Rights Act. This legislation made it illegal to discriminate against people because of their race. The Jim Crow rules of the South that promoted segregation and the harsh mistreatment of African Americans were now against federal law. This was one of the greatest accomplishments for the civil rights movement. In March of 1965, Martin led a march from Selma to the Capitol building in Montgomery, Alabama, to urge President Lyndon B. Johnson and his administration to pass a law protecting the rights of African American voters. At the conclusion of the march, Martin gave another powerful speech that helped rally more supporters. That same year, Congress went on to pass the Voting Rights Act that eliminated the remaining barriers to voting for African Americans. Prior to this legislation, there were still areas in which African Americans were completely disenfranchised, meaning they did not have the right to vote. Over the next 3 years, Martin's focus shifted from racial discrimination to economic injustice and international peace. He led campaigns in Chicago, Illinois, and spoke strongly against the Vietnam War. Martin's opposition to the war cost him support among white allies, including the president, union leaders, and publishers. Martin and the SCLC also organized the Poor People's Campaign in 1968 in an effort to assemble a multiracial coalition of poor Americans who would advocate for economic change. On April 4, 1968, Martin was shot while standing on the balcony outside of his hotel room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. At 7:05 p.m., Martin was pronounced dead at St. Joseph's Hospital. He was 39 years old. Martin was buried in his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. changed the course of American history. He worked tirelessly to ensure that all people, regardless of race, religion, or national origin, had equal opportunities and could live their lives without fear of violence and discrimination. Martin is regarded as America's greatest human rights advocate. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating a federal holiday honoring Martin. The holiday, observed on the third Monday of January each year, is called Martin Luther King Jr. Day, or MLK Day. In the year 2000, it was officially observed by all 50 states for the first time.
Guys, I would like to share with you the vocabulary words from Witty reading. The words are community, history, care, major, station, theater, and library. We're going to go over each definition for the vocabulary words, so don't worry, we will check them together in a few minutes. Alright, so let's begin by what is a community. Alright, a community is a group of people living in the same place. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to write down the definition: a group of people living in the same, in the same place. For example, you live in a community, you live in a street, and in the street there are many houses, or a private maybe, and this is your community, the place where you live, and your neighbors are the part of your community. Alright, so that is the first one. The second one is history. What is history? Do you have an idea? Okay, history is the study of the past events. The study of past events. The story of past events. So we have in Spanish, you guys have a subject that is called history, and you guys study the past time, events, important events that change maybe the world, that change the laws, something that impact the world. And care, what is care? To protect, to protect someone or something. Or something. You can protect a family member, you can protect someone that is sick, or you can protect something, You can take care of your things, You take care of the things that you buy, of a building, you take care of your house, You protect someone or something. Now, a major, this is a person, but do you guys know the definition for major or have an idea what major is? Major is a chief, the head of a city. Remember when I say the community? The people living near your houses, So there is always a chief, and the chief is going to be in charge of the community. So the major is a chief, head of the city, or the community where you live. So this the city involves all, okay? So this is the mayor, okay? The head of the city, okay? And a station, what is a station? A stopping place, for example, a bus station, okay? A stopping place. Have the bus stations, okay, where the buses stop to pick up people. All right, a theater. Have you ever heard of this word, a theater? What is a theater? A theater is a building. A building to what? Where performances are given. Are given. For example, when it's Mother's Day, you go to the theater downtown. When it is Christmas time, you guys dance at the theater downtown. So a theater is a building where performances are given. Drama, dances, okay, where you show the art. All right, what is a library? A library is a building containing books. Let's try collection of books. Okay. So this is where you guys find a library. Is not only in your school. We also have public libraries where you guys can get a book, rent a book, or even buy a book, okay? So this is a very interesting place. If you can visit one day, you will see that a library has many thousands of books, different books that you can read, okay, and enjoy reading. All right, so community, a group of people living in the same place, okay? The community where you live, for example. History, the study of past events, okay? Remember to not repeat the past. We need to know what happened in the past. Care, to protect someone or something. Someone or something. It can be a person or a thing. Major, a chief, the head of the city. Okay, the head of the city. A station, a stopping place. A place where they stop. Okay. A theater, a building where performances are given. Remember, as I said, Teatro de la Reforma is one, okay, as an example here in Veracruz. The library, a building with book collections, okay, and I hope that you guys kind of get an idea what these vocabulary words are. You guys are going to work with these vocabulary words tomorrow because we're going over a very interesting story in the Awesome Reader, and these vocabulary words are going to help you guys to understand better the story in the Awesome Reader. All right, guys, I hope that you like the explanation. Thank you very much for your attention and for watching. And thank you very much to all of you that took your time to celebrate me, sending me lots of love, the videos that you sent me, the presents that I received. Thank you very much, guys. I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I really hope that one day I could hug you again, okay, and see you. I send you lots of love, lots of kisses. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure for me to be your teacher. Goodbye. Guys, now it's time for the quiz, but before the quiz, I would like to leave you guys with this beautiful quote. It says, a good leader must be fair. And this is from Zhao Ming. I definitely agree. If you are a good leader, you must be fair. All right, guys, please take your quiz, do your best. I know you guys are very, very clever. Good luck, guys. Take your quiz now. Hey guys, don't forget that the quiz you must be doing it in pleno. Take it in pleno. Remember, it is in the platform. And open your Witty reading quiz. This is about the first day at school. Okay, Please take your quiz now.